How's it going, everyone? It's Geoff Chrysler of Rightway Heritage Trimming and a detail enthusiast. I'm here with my next big project, this beautiful Jaguar XK150 fixed head coupe. Let me just turn this around for you. There she is. Look at that, a thing of beauty. So this XK150 has been restored by our good friends Richard Michael Owen of Owen Automotive. Richard's been working on this car over the last 3 years, and you can follow along. He's got a YouTube channel and he's been doing a series of videos chronicling the entire restoration of this, and he's done just a beautiful job. Spared no expense. It's, you know, just as shiny underneath as it is on top. And lots of, you know, very nicely done upgrades that have been carefully worked in so as to maintain the original look. But, you know, it's got a Tremec 5-speed gearbox and 4-wheel disc brakes and, you know, electric cooling fan and generator converted to an alternator, but still maintains the look of the generator. Lots of little things like that to make it a enjoyable, usable car for modern traffic situations. And so I'm here to install the interior. I've been working with Richard over the last few years to install things as we needed, like this headliner, which I did, you know, 8 or 9 months ago so that he could continue on with all the glass and that. So you have to do these things in order. So there's my headliner, and of course all the dash components I had already pre-trimmed months ago, so Richard was able to install all that with all the switches and gauges and that and finish it. You can see that center panel. Richard found one of the, that's normally a gray piece of leather covering another piece of wood on these, but I guess you could, a rare option was to have that embossed aluminum panel, so he was able to find one and get it cleaned up and re-anodized. So really neat, unique piece there. And so yeah, first things first, I'll be insulating the firewall and tunnel. You can see I've got all this jute felt, which I'm using the 3/4 inch stuff on the firewall to get as much insulation and sound deadening as we can. You can see Richard's already pre-installed a few pieces of the that 3M insulation, sort of like Dynamat, but 3M make this black version. Same sort of stuff. It's nice and thin and does a really good job for heat and sound deadening. So he's put that in a number of places, including in the doors, which really helps quiet those down from rattle. Now also you can see over here I've got all of these components. This is all basically the doors. So there's these are the inner pockets that go in the bottoms of the doors, and that's the front and rear casing panels and the upper door cappings, and these are the lower door pocket pieces, and of course all the seals and the piping that goes around the edge of the door. So door panels alone are a huge project, a lot to it on a XK150. So, and here's all the various chrome hardware and fittings for the doors. The Ramsey seal, rear quarter panels. So these are all, this is kits that I got from BAS Jaguar out of the UK. There is also a BAS out of the States that I actually used to work for their company for 10 years. So very familiar with the BAS products, and I used to produce these panel kits by the 100 for people all over the world. Here's the carpet set, proper Wilton wool Jaguar carpet, and the rest of the panel kit is over here. That's the boot lid panel and some of the Hardira underneath, and that's the moquette covered fuel filler cover. I already trimmed a lot of these things previously, so they're all ready to go. There's the rear quarter panels and under dash panels and kick panels back there. And of course the front seats and armrest, which again, I trimmed these last year, so they're all ready to go. So, and it's all new seat foam and new wood in a lot of cases, because that stuff usually deteriorates. So yeah, this stuff is all ready to install over the next few weeks. So there's a lot to these XK150s, so I'll take you through it step by step and show you how it's done. So to start off today, I'm going to be continuing on with adding some more of that 3M insulation. So I picked up a fresh box this morning, and you can see these come in 24-inch squares, and it's just peel and stick, and you know, they're perforated so you can cut them in half easily if you need to. Really easy stuff to use and super effective at sound deadening and insulation. So you can see here I've been installing this black 3M insulation everywhere. So I got all the toe boards and all along the firewall there, and coming out along here on the tunnel and right back. And this stuff, really easy, peel and stick. You can cut it with your scissors and stick it down. It's really strong, and points, I'm trying to avoid any areas where there's hardware so that all this stuff still remains removable. You don't want to cover valuable hardware with this stuff because it'll be really hard to find afterwards. So yeah, just neatly going around things, and should make a big difference. So the next step, now that that's in place, I can start gluing in some of this jute underfelt, which is insulation and sound deadening again. And all the firewall pieces are going to be 3/4 inch thick, and then I'm using 1/2 inch on this stuff just because of clearance issues, and the factory used the 1/2 inch on the tunnel anyway, so I got to keep it nice and thin where you have to. So we'll get into that. Okay, so been moving right along here. I finished getting all the jute installed in the front along the firewall there. It was all 3/4 inch jute, and then coming down here along the tunnel as well. And of course you had to build it up a little bit on the top to try and reduce the notable hump, or at least smooth it out to try and relieve wrinkles in the carpet, and then glued the carpet in place. So here you can see, looking really good. And so with the sequence of carpets, I had to start with this forward one here. It's all a sewn assembly, these 3 panels, 1, 2, 3. So you push it into place and then kind of lift up each side and glue them, and then stick them down in both directions. And then it actually comes under here a couple inches. You can see some chalk there, but and then this main tunnel carpet, which is also a sewn assembly, it goes on top of that, overlapping. And it took a lot of work to try and get all the wrinkles out of it and try to smooth it out. They're quite a baggy thing, so you got to really work up the jute underneath of it to try and fill it out. And but we got it there. It's nice and tight now. So once the tunnel was all in place, I was able to fit in the front kick panels, followed by the toe board carpets, which the toe boards overlap both. There's a flap on the side of the kick panel, and there's also flaps of carpet on the tunnel sections there. And on the driver's side, you have to install the moquette pieces on that dip switch first, and then you can do the kick panel, and then you can finish with the toe board carpet, as you can see there. So now that that stuff is all in, I can move back. This armrest is just sitting here temporarily. It's got to be screwed in place. You can see it's screw holes underneath, so it will be held down tight like that. And of course, it has this shift boot, or handbrake boot as part of it. But before I install that, I've got to continue on in the back here. So next piece to go in is I'm going to be doing a 1/2 inch foam on this to level it out a bit, and then it gets covered in a big moquette cover that's sewn with a seam in the center there. So I'll trim that, and then again a bit more 1/8 inch foam on the faces of those, and then trim those with moquette covers, and then down along the bottom here also gets moquette covers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces to go in, and then I can finish it off with the big Hardura that covers this whole area, overlapping the moquette. Moving along here, I've continued with the 3M insulation paneling and done this whole rear area, and as you can see, I've now installed I covered this whole thing in 1/2-inch foam first, got it nice and smooth, and then installed the big piece of moquette. So that's nicely in there, nice and smooth, quite happy with that. And so I can continue on. There's going to be more moquette covers for these corner pieces. There's a sewn piece that goes on here first, and then there's another cover that goes along these bottom faces. And then once those are in there, the moquette pieces, there's a big bound Hardura piece that covers this whole area and overlaps all the moquette. Now, for things to consider as you're installing these moquette covers, you need to trim it off even with this lower edge. And because I'll be trimming this with some vinyl, there is like a trap door sort of thing that hinges at the bottom. So I've cut around the hinges where they go. And just for all the thicknesses and clearance, I want to keep this nice and clean. I don't want to have extra layers in here so that that door can function freely. So little things like that to consider. So I can continue on with these moquette pieces and I'll show you how it looks. Okay, so moving along here, as you can see, I've got the big Hardura piece glued in place now, and nicely finishes over top of those moquettes. Of course, I forgot to mention that before putting in this Hardura and even these guys, you got to put in this vinyl. So I had to carefully peel it back a little bit just so I could squeeze the vinyl in there and then hand glue it back up. So that's all looking proper, and yeah, that vinyl wraps around the edge all the way around. It's glued, and that finishes that. And then, like I say, there's a door that will go on there. The hinges are just underneath, so I can just peel it back, put the hinges in, and then glue it back. So, but before I put that door on, the next step I'm going to get into is installing the rear quarter panels that cover all of this. And you can see there's one of the panels right there. I was just offering it up and fitting it, so it's going to slide right in there. And there's a row of screws that hold it in along the front edge here, and then it slots into little flanges there and there, and even at the top there you can see where it squeezes in under the headliner. So once I get those rear quarter panels in, then I can finish off with the door here and the rear panels that go and finish off that area. So here we go. Okay, so there we are. As you can see, I've moved right along here. I've got the rear quarter panels installed, screws along the front. I've also installed the door, which I had trimmed in moquette, and it has a Hardura backing on the back that's sewn to it. So yeah, these quarter panels were a little tricky to get them totally tight in, and you can see it pushes into that slot at the top there, and all the way along here it has to push into that groove, and there's another one down here. So got that all in, and this Hardura is all in place now. And then once the quarter panel is in, I was able to put in this upper vinyl panel, which just snaps down. It's got a row of push-in snaps, clips, and then this rear light panel could go in. And of course I had to pre-install the light fixture, make sure the wiring's all done up, and then pop it in place. So, and I've seen some cars, this panel has screws either along the bottom, or some cars I've seen it along the top, and I've seen some cars that don't have any screws at all. And I think 150s especially, they're trying to hide screws as much as possible. There's a lot of areas they play little tricks, like on the sides of the seats and that, where there's no visible fasteners. And so I believe that maybe these were originally installed without screws, because it is a nice pop-in sort of fit. It's not going anywhere right now, and But maybe there is supposed to be screws. You can leave comments in the comment section. Just tell me where the screws should go. So here it is in the lowered position, and yeah, I've still got to install, there's some little chrome escutcheons for where those slide bolts lock into that go up there, and will also help hold that panel over. So we seem to be missing those, so I haven't installed those yet. But here's the little hold strap that goes in, and yeah, that's how that goes. So with the rear quarter panels in and all these rear panels, I can now put in the rear seats. So I've the cushions just set in place, but the backrest pieces, they get some little button snaps that are actually on the back of the seat. So I've got to drill and install those through the hardera there. So I'm just installing these rear seats, put the cushions in, and now I'm just installing the little backrest pieces. So I've got to locate the male snaps that have to drill and install on the hardera there. So I've just laid this down, take a piece of chalk and mark the snaps, make sure they get well covered, and then I can hold it in position. And should be there. Just like that. I'll have to do that. Well, almost there. I'll do that a second time, get a little bit better, but you get the idea. And there we go. Seats fully installed. So that basically finishes this rear area for the most part. I've got some minor adjustments to do, but pretty happy with that. I did end up narrowing this door by about 1/4 of an inch in total. Took 1/8 off of each side, just so that it would open up properly, because it was rubbing. It still rubs a little bit, but it's not going to hurt anything at this point. So, and yeah, basically I'm ready to start installing the Ramsey seal and snap-on around the windows and door openings. So, and here's the tunnel. I've fit the armrest and screwed it in position, so that's all nice. And finishing on the floor, I've added some more of that 3M insulation, and then the main floor mats will just lay in place over top with some carpet snaps, and then I can install the seats. And here's just a look at the driver's side with everything installed. So looking really nice there. And I should point out there's a number of smaller covers that I had to install, like here and there. Just any areas that might show once the main mats are fit in place. So I've test fit those. Of course, I've still got to install this under dash panel and put some more screws in those guys, but this is pretty much all done. So I can start getting into all the seals and installing the door trim now. Okay, so I'm just going to show you quickly how I'm installing this Ramsey seal. So the Ramsey seal goes up all the way along this flange edge and stops right at the corner there. And it's actually pinched on with this snap-on door seal, this fuzzy stuff. So you can see on the inside here, I've already started there will be another section of it going down here, but I've started it here nice and tight to the chrome there, and it just hammers on using a little rubber mallet. Work your way around nice and easy, and it pinches the headliner there. And here is where the Ramsey seal starts. So it'll pinch on that Ramsey seal going all the way around here. So to help the Ramsey seal, I've also glued up that flange just using a hand brush with some glue, and I've glued the inner track. You can see this Ramsey seal is shaped like that. So that flange is going to go into that groove, and then the snap-on will go over top of it. So I can start installing that Ramsey seal, keeping it nice and tight in the bottom corner, and go all the way up around here and then cut it off nice and tight there. And then I can finish that snap-on to help pinch it all the way around. Okay, and there we go. There is the Ramsey seal and snap-on door trim all installed. The Ramsey seal just does this front edge and all the way around the top, and then it's just a regular snap-on along the bottom. And up here there's those 2 screws. I had to put the snap-on on and then drill through the snap-on to install those screws for holding the quarter panel, so that was quite tricky. Had to get some, I actually had to replace those screws with longer ones. They have to be quite long to get that. So but yeah, looks really nice here. And you can see here's the snap-on going all the way around here. It gets a nice seal with the Ramsey seal and finishes it off very nicely. And I've just laid in the main floor mats here as well, just to finish it off. And man, she's looking really good. And here's this side just for good measure. As you can see, here's the door seals installed. Really finishes it off nicely, and also helps to hold that headliner along the edges, gives it a nice finish. So you can see I've laid in the main floor mats, and so I can now I can locate and put the seat runners in. That'll be the next step. And of course a couple snaps for these main floor mats as well, just in the front corners there. Okay, so I'm just installing the seats and seat tracks. So I've got the other side already done, so I'm installing them like this. I've located the holes and punching them through, and then once I put the seat tracks onto the seat frame first, and then I offer the whole thing up. I find it easier to install just the lower frame without the backrest on it and bolt it up with the hardware, just going through those 4 holes. And then once that's bolted up, then I can install the backrest with its hardware. So one seat's in, I just gotta drop the cushion in place. But man, does that ever look nice. And just like that, we have seats. Wow. Does that ever finish things off inside? So, looking really good. These are the seats I trimmed last year. Standard XK150. They got the moquette on the back, and there's the side panels that don't show any hardware. Really tricky the way they're done. And yeah, came out really nice. All new wood, all new foams. And boy, do they ever look good in there. Okay, and we've also got the boot interior installed. So pretty simple back here. It's just a case of, I first of all just installed the moquette covered fuel cover. Well, first of all, offered up these side panels, and they just get a bit of glue in the front and rear here. And then I offered up the fuel filler, which just has a couple screws in the floor to hold it in place. And there's the other side. And then the main boot mat just lays in. I did have to do a bit of an alteration here so that it can go around the boot mat as well as the boot lid panel. You had to go around it. So the boot lid panel just screws in place with panel screws. It was a really good fit. And yeah, and then of course the hinge cover panel. It just gets 3 screws coming up from the bottom, and that's it. And I've still got to install, there's just 4 snaps in this main boot mat, 2 back here and 2 at the front, so that'll finish it off. Okay, so just getting into the door panels. So first step, I have installed the lower pocket assembly. So I actually had to take these 2 rivets out so that that whole frame could swing in a little bit to make room for it. And then I was able to drop it down in place, and it's got these little fold over tabs here that kind of get trapped under these brackets. Basically, once you get it in place, it's got a big long flap of vinyl that hangs down, and you can pop it in, rivet down this edge, and then pull these brackets, rivet them in again. So now that that frame's set where it needs to be, and then that big flap of vinyl you carefully trim into the channel that's part of this frame and glue it to the frame there. So now it's in there, it's all part of the frame unit. So, and that channel is where the main door panel which is that guy, is going to drop down into that channel. So you can see kind of where it's going to fit in there. But before that happens, my next step here is to put on this lower pocket panel. And you can see it's got some little clips on the back of it that just slot into these two holes. So I'll be popping that on, and it gets riveted on either side. And of course it's got huge vinyl flaps, which I need to cut off. But anyway, so that'll be going in there. But the first thing I got to do is start the piping, because this entire door panel has piping going around the bottom and side perimeters. So, and the piping, I need to center it. Here's my big thing of piping. I need to center it on the bottom here and start stapling it along in both directions, and then offer up that panel there. And then these side casing panels will go on either side of it and have the piping continuing up their outer edges as well. And then once that's all done, then I can drop the center panel in and put on the top capping that has its little brush seal for the window. So yeah, that's how it all goes. And of course, when I go to install the main panel, I've got to put in all the escutcheons for the windshield winder and the lock and latch mechanisms. Okay, so you can see I've marked my center line and I've glued and stapled this piping along here, keeping it nice and centered. It'll leave those long tails. Now I can mount this pocket to the door, and those tails I'll glue up the sides here. They will correspond with the side casing panels. Okay, just like so, I've installed this lower pocket panel. So you just slot it into those two slots that I showed you earlier, and then these end plates get riveted to the panel. I should note I've been able to reuse all of the original holes on this car, so really easy to locate. So yeah, just a couple pop rivets there, and now I can continue by putting these side casings on, which show you how they go. Here's one here, so it's gonna tuck in here and slide down, and of course it gets a couple rivets just on the inside edge here, and the piping will glue up along the inside edge, even with the outside of the door frame here, and same thing with the front. There's this corresponding panel there. So we'll get those riveted in place and get the piping nicely installed and continue on. Okay, so there you go. There are the front and rear side casings installed, and I've got the piping going all the way around the edges. That was pretty tricky to get it glued in properly. I will say also, these side casings, I ended up going back, and even though I got a fresh panel kit that came with new side casings, they weren't as good a fit as the original ones that came out of this, so I ended up going back and re-trimming the original side casings and installing those, so they fit much better. So with those side casings installed, now I can put on the upper door capping, which just finishes that whole area, and then I'll be installing the main panel with all of its chrome escutcheon plates and hardware. So here you can see I've now installed the upper door capping panel. I had to modify the panel a little bit so that it could clear those clip holes, because when I put the main panel in, it relies on those clip holes to stay attached along the top there. So a little bit of modification, but yeah, that's looking really nice. So now I'm just kind of preparing the main panel here. I've poked the holes through just roughly. There's the clips in the top. I have to, this clip hole is not in the right spot, so I'm having to drill and put in a new clip hole where that chalk mark is. There'll be another clip down here. And these panels are kind of set up to fit both early and late configurations. So these holes are for the later style armrests, which we may be installing yet. These four down here, I'm gonna have to cut. There's an ashtray that this car had, so I'm putting ashtrays in the door panel, so I'll cut out those and trim them out. So I'm just preparing these all the chrome hardware for the main door panels. So you can see I've got, these are for the ashtrays. There's the ashtrays themselves and their little escutcheon, the screw hardware. These are the door latch handle pieces, and these are of course the window winder cranks. So they will all be assembling to the main door panel here. This is the hole for the window crank, that's the door opening slider, and the ashtray I still have to, you can see those 4 holes mark where it gets cut out, and I have to cut that out of the panel and trim it. So, and then there will be an armrest going on here. We're still deciding which style. So, and here is just to show you, this is the early style of armrest that came with these XK150s, and with the panel in place, this literally just screws on like this. There's some of its original holes there. So that was just kind of more of an armrest than an actual handle, and later on they started using this actual handle one, and it's like I was pointing out before, it would have provisions roughly in this area that this thing goes in with, and it has these bolts that go in on a 45-degree angle. You can see they kind of go up on an angle there. So the provisions in the door panel have to be on that same angle. Like they cut little C shapes with a captive welded nut and just bent them in at the right angle. So that's how they would install. Okay, so as you can see, I've finished assembling the doors by installing the center panel, which I had to first install the chrome strip along the top, and then it just pops in place with all of the panel clips just going into the holes along the top there. And then I finished it off with the pieces here, the winder and the latch assembly and the ashtray. The one last thing I've still got to install on this is the armrests, and you can feel there's a little slot in the actual panel right there, so the screws will be going through right about there. I've just got to retrim those armrests in some fresh new vinyl. We're going with the early style in the end, so keep it original to the car. So okay, so that about finishes off the door panels, and you can see I fit the early style armrest on there. So you have to install the bracket first to the car and then put the main panel on and just cut a little slice for the bracket to stick through, and then you can pop in the panel and snap it all down and put all the hardware on, and then the armrest itself just screws on through the bottom on that little bracket. So that finishes the door panel, finishes the interior pretty much. I'm just doing a little bit of height adjustment on the cushions, and that should be about it. The other door panel's finished over there, as you can see. So it's all looking really good. So that about finishes this beautiful XK150. Very happy with how the interior turned out. I'll give you a little walkthrough here. You can see it just even looks stunning from the outside. So properly insulated, nice new Wilton wool carpet. The leather seats. I've adjusted the height and density of the seats so that they're nice and comfortable. Beautiful, the gray wool headliner. It uses the correct non-stretch English Vianide that the Jaguars and Heelys and all sorts of British cars at the time were using. So it's the correct materials. It's the early style armrests that I finished these door panels off with. And yeah, it just looks beautiful. Here's the rear compartment. Fold these seats forward. Here's the rear seat area. The rear door that pulls down. Shows you into the boot there. Very happy. You can see those end panels on the seats, how there's no visible fasteners on them. It's a unique thing for the XK150s. So yeah, just looking beautiful here. I'll show you in the boot. Love how these doors close nice and firmly. boot. Beautiful. And I got this mat all fastened down at the front. You can see the snaps there inside of that door. Lots of trunk room in an XK150. You could easily fit your golf clubs in there, or your guitar. So that's a wrap on this XK150. Really happy with the results. Just a stunning car. So on to the next project. Until next time, I'm Geoff Chrysler, a detail enthusiast and owner of Rightway Heritage Trimming. We'll see you again.